move on.
Okay.
Where are we going with that?
Where are we going with this?
The problem was it was going to give both of you gratification. I couldn't do that. So it's time to talk to Handsome John about what's going on with Apple and lawsuits, paying money. What's happening?
Well, we talked about how Apple has done kind of some shady stuff in the past, and we know that Apple and Epic are currently in a head-banging right now in dealing with their lawsuits with who owes what money and why. I don't know, Epic feels like they're more special, but at the same time, Apple's a gouging beast.
Apple never does anything wrong. You know, I've got to live up to John's expectations of me being an Apple simp here. So
There we go.
they never do anything wrong.
I was the Apple. I was the one telling you guys it's not that bad.
They
And
are
everybody's
the
like,
overlords. Okay.
Yeah. Says the
but
man
this
who's
is
being tracked
this is
everywhere.
kind of a dark mark with Apple, and there's been a couple of them, and they keep rolling in with it's like that little rotten core inside the apple you never saw when you bite into it. And you're like, oh, the worm. Unfortunately, they were slowing down iPhones for financial gain, and so they settled for $113 million, which I think is a pittance for the iPhone 6, 7, and the SE versions in 2016. 33 states have decided to take on Apple in court over this practice, also known as purposeful obsolescence. Though I did also find a other cool vocab word, pseudo-functional obsolescence. And it appears to introduce innovative changes into a product, but in reality, it does not. So in pseudo-functional obsolescence, often forcibly outmodes the otherwise useful product, such as Apple
iPhones.
iPhones in general are actually pseudo-functional obsolescence. I'm just kidding. That's not the case. They actually do a really good job with their phones. It's just that they're doing some really shady crap right now, and they always have. I think they've been doing this since the days of the iPhone 4. People always suspected it, called them out on it. They said, no, that was just to preserve the battery, because the new updates were draining battery life and doing this. So we were doing this to try to, stabilize the product. And it's like, no, you knew what you were doing. And by this current 6, 7 generation, they're like, we're calling you out on your shit. You're putting out, garbage software updates to these phones to slow them down to make people want to update them, which would make sense as a company that you were like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to expedite the process at which I get more money? But at the same time, as a consumer, you're like, there's a level of trust when you're giving me a software update that I'm being told is to benefit me, at which point you are screwing me.
Yeah.
And I have already paid top tier dollar. All these phones were already more expensive than their competitor, and people were buying it for security, and it was a premium product on the market at the time. Until they started going to SEs, which I don't know why that was a thing. I still don't understand that. But
gotta get that lower tier dollar.
Cheaper phones, more accessible to everyone else. That's why they still sold two generation old phones.
Yeah, and the fact that what they're doing is obviously morally corrupt just doesn't bode well for them in any other lawsuits they're going to be going at. That's going to be in the eyes of the judge going, well, you like screwing other people. I mean, what's to make the difference here? But
what's another one? Well, I think you brought up a really good point earlier, John, while we were talking about this before the show, which is nobody accepts a settlement of this size, even if it's just a piss in the bucket for Apple, if they're not guilty.
Yeah, no one's going to jail and saying, I'll pay the $13 million, but I didn't do it. But I'll pay the $13 million. It's cool.
Your court fees are not $113 million. Like, you could easily fight this out in court if you are completely fine.
If you feel like you've got a good standing, go for it, bro. No, not happening. And this is also a different settlement from the one that they agreed to back in March for $500 million in the class action lawsuit. Let's not forget. This is it's going to be a giant storm. I hope it is. Because the $113 million, if you look at how many people bought those phones between the 6, the 7, and the SEs for all of those versions, you're looking at millions of people. You're talking less than $1 per device that was affected is what they were being settled for. Like fuck off. You are now a $1 trillion company because of how many people you have fucked into buying another phone and thinking that it was dying. In reality, it wasn't. And then not only that, but you also caused a huge backlash in this recycling industry that you all of a sudden needed to really get into because you were running out of ways to make more phones for yourself.
Let us not forget that they're also getting rid of the charger because they're trying to be more green. Yep.
And yeah, they're trying to cut costs in any which way they can in order to benefit themselves, which granted, they are a company. They have stockholders that they have to want to pay dividends to and want to encourage to, stay with them. I get that.
Morals don't always apply whenever it comes to business. Money is the one thing that applies, unfortunately.
They very often don't. And that's why when any company goes, look at what we're doing for the environment, and I'm like, well, okay, there's a yin and yang to everything. What are you fucking then? Because let me tell you, you're saying look over here, and usually it's don't look over here.
Well, yes, it's a magic trick. Whenever the magician says to look right here, the real trick's happening like underneath or on the side or a sleeve, something.
Oh yeah, they're
behind your back, whatever. And
unfortunately, Apple is no angel in this. And I for the longest time, I was like, I mean, look at its creator. I mean, he was a pistol. But at the same time, you look at Apple, you think, oh, they're trying to do good things. They're making good products. But they're still, they have people committing suicide in their factories in Japan that were making these phones because they were being worked to death and they would rather die than work in those facilities. Like,
I just can't believe you called Steve Jobs a pistol. There's a lot of phrases I would use to describe Steve Jobs.
I'm trying to be nice, and I do believe in ghosts.
One of them.
Well, no, he was unstable to a lot of people. He was very much
okay, there you go.
A little insane in a lot of ways. But
obsessive
a lot of people look at, he's a genius. He's just different. It's like, sometimes you're just crazy, but that's cool too.
Aaron Sorkin has an amazing film called Jobs, right? I think it's just called, it's the one with not the Ashton Kutcher one, the one with what's his name? Oh my God,
not Jude Law.
No, his name is. I know. God, I can't believe I can't remember this.
God damn, you asked me.
Michael Fassbender.
Yes,
got it. Michael Fassbender. Yeah, and that one's incredible. Now, Aaron Sorkin, there's some fictionality in how he writes stuff.
The one with Ashton Kutcher is called Jobs.
Okay.
The one with Michael Fassbender is Steve Jobs.
There we go. That's the one.
It was so funny how he died. Everybody's like, throw out the movies now. We already got him in. Just throw him out. It's like, holy shit.
It's on Netflix. I highly recommend it because it truly shows what a gray character that man was.
Go ahead.
Well, we were just talking about the founder.
It did take 4 years for those movies to come out. So
I felt like it was like right after his death. I felt like they hadn't even got past the funeral. Those movies were out.
He died in 2011. Jobs was the only one I think that was no, actually, even then, Jobs was 2 years later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe it just felt that way. Yeah, time flies, right?
And then Steve Jobs was 2 years after that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to look at when you're buying things from companies like, I don't know, Amazon, Best Buy, Target, Home Depot, all these companies, or Jimmy John's, for instance. The owner of Jimmy John's that started the company likes to go and hunt endangered species. He shoots elephants that have been chained down or whatever, captured for him just to shoot. And go, look what I did. And it's like, do you want to support that when you buy a sandwich? Every sandwich you eat is not only probably full of dead animal, which is fine, I eat meat, but it also is supporting the fact of killing an innocent animal for no reason whatsoever. So you have to often think about what you're supporting when you're buying things. And I think a company that is purposely screwing you into buying more of their product, much like cigarette companies put nicotine into their tobacco in order to get you to keep buying it,
is lied about the addictiveness for years
and said that none of it caused cancer and none of it is that addictive. We believe that you could do it's no. I mean, they had doctors going out and pimping this stuff out to people. I mean,
can I burst this bubble and simultaneously enrage you a little bit more?
I can't wait.
So excited.
$113 million. It is literally the tiniest drop in the bucket for them. Because do you want to know how much cash on hand that they have, or how reported as of last quarter?
1.3 trillion.
No. Definitely not that much. 193.82 billion.
Yeah,
it is still a piss in the bucket.
Yeah, but I mean, how much money did they make based on the 6 and 7 series models in general? Or no, it would be the generation after that. It would be the 8 and the 10 is really where they would have made most of their money from the 6 and the 7s, because they purposely gave them obsolescence to buy the next generation.
I have to look at.
So it would be the 8, the Max, the X, and the X Max. That
we may or may not have stats in the Google Doc for that information.
No, I'm just saying in general, like if you wanted to dive deeper into this, you want to see how screwed up this is, how much that 113 million did nothing to prove a point. It's pharmaceutical companies have, it's like how they get slapped on the wrist for this I don't know, abusing medications and making people sick and lying about things. And it's like, oh, we're going to fine you $20 million. That's a lot of money, right, guys? And it's like they made $1.5 billion off of this medication, and then they did another $4 billion in damage based on its addictiveness to all states. Can we please have a little bit more recourse for this?
I've got 2 television show references. One is How I Met Your Mother, where Marshall is one of the main characters who wants to become an environmental lawyer, and he finally makes it like the top firm in New York City. In their first case, they get $20,000, and he is furious about it. But the entire firm is like ecstatic. They're like, $20,000
party, having cake, all kinds of stuff.
We're having cake, and so he finally confronts his boss. Like, are you kidding me? $20,000? Like, what happened to you bucking up? He's like, I don't think you understand, Marshall. Like, the world is going to die. There's nothing we can do about it at this point in time. So we take our $20,000 and we have cake and we enjoy life, because in 20 years, we're going to be a smoldering rock of ash. You're like, okay, well, that's a valid point.
Well, the thing is that's honestly how I'm starting to feel. And I think how companies look at it. They're like, use everything to the max because someone else will if we don't. And I'm like, no, it's up to us, the people, to vote people in to stop these kind of practices so we can continue to live. And so can our nieces and nephews and grandchildren and their children. Like, Jesus, God, think about the future. A couple of generations would be great.
The other reference I have is a show that I want both of you to watch. So I'm going to slightly spoil a portion of it.
Okay.
Not too big, though. It's The Good Place.
Yeah.
So,
Fork.
One of the things in The Good Place they bring up in the show is how it's almost impossible to be a good person based on the standards of what we all thought a good person was, because of how complicated society is today, right? Like you brought up Amazon, John. Like, I buy from Amazon a lot in this house. Mark, I know you do too, right? COVID has complicated things more because it feels more reliance on it. But we know the practices. We talk about it all the time on this show about how terrible they are. But it's also incredibly difficult to determine, like, can I find a better purpose for this? Like, I just want batteries. Like, that's all I want is batteries to operate my remote. But that's automatically a mark against you as a bad person, because you are providing a company with revenue that does terrible things to consumers. And so
not just to consumers, to its employees.
To its employees, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And so it becomes an incredibly gray and complex situation of like, we're, I won't say we're the most privileged people, but we are privileged in our areas.
Oh,
right?
we're up there. Oh, don't you worry, we're up there.
John and I have PS5s. You've got a nice PC set up. We get to record and talk shit every week about what's going on in the world. So I feel like we're good. But there are people who aren't as privileged and do rely on these systems that do nothing but perpetuate a system of hurting individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's tough.
And I've said this before, maybe not on this podcast, of the problem with the way that some of these businesses work is as shitty as their practices might be on the back end, and even as public as that knowledge might be, if the service and the product that they provide is good enough, a lot of times it doesn't matter.
100%.
Yeah. And people, it's the ends justify the means scenario. And that's the kind of crap that's going to get us all in a smoldering, fiery ball of ash. Because we're going to not care about what the hell we pump out as long as we got every bit of oil. And then you get to the bottom of Pandora's box and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Yellowstone blew up. How did that happen? oh well. It's like,
well, but instead of just thinking, wow, we really messed this up, we're gonna blame it on something else.
yeah.
Correct. And Elon Musk is going to be using his farts to power himself to Mars. That's what it'll be.
Well, I just want one last anecdote, and this is the part that makes me the most sick. And it's always the responsibility. It's always the accountability of companies, whether it be BP from their oil spills or Apple from paying their $113 million settlement. And also does not require Apple to admit that it did anything wrong or that it broke any laws.
That's the shit right there. That's shit right there.
That's unfortunately the way that the justice system works on that one is. Actually, it's not even the justice system. Actually, that's circumventing the justice system. But
but it has to provide truthful information about its batteries on its website. Update notes and phone settings for the next 3 years.
And that's fine.
Which
that's
means
part of their
fucking nothing. All I can say is you can't lie on your website. That's it. All you have to do is not lie. They don't have to post any relevant information.
But is there any regulating body on that? Is there anything that validates that information is truthful?
Us. It's always going to be reliant on you, the consumer.
Right.
Do your research and hold people accountable. Unfortunately, it always is. Or fortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have gotten lazy. I think that there was a level of journalistic integrity that everyone had at one point in time in the past that we are starting to try to get back to, but people are fighting it. People like Trump, who constantly yells fake news. And it's like, yeah, but I did my own research and this is what I found. And it's like, oh, you're fake news. I'm like, I'm not news. So what am I? Am I a fake person? Like, I don't understand.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes, you're a fake person.
You have to be responsible for yourself. Like, you make decisions like supporting Amazon, which, a lot of people may say they did us a service during the pandemic. They filled in a hole that no other company could ever do. And they're not wrong. I mean, to be honest, there was a good that they had done for people, but in a way, like, there were other people on the other side, the yin, the yang, that suffered to do this for you. When's the last time you heard we're all in this together?
Been a while.
Song or
no, like when people would talk about COVID in general. When's the last time you heard we're all in this together?
Joe Biden, when he was talking
actually, that's
yesterday.
But like other than him, like news stopped saying it. I mean, broadcast that all these companies that were like, hey, we're all in this together. Them saying, hey, buy my stuff. We're all in this together. And it's like
that was March and April.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we're in the consumer months, which are Black Friday and Christmas. All of a sudden, who the f cares who you're with? Buy my TV, buy my
all the shit
whatever
goes out the window anyway. So who cares right now?
Yeah, and it's just we are unfortunately a consumeristic society in which we are able to buy things at the click of a phone or a computer, and we have to get better as people. Companies will not be this shitty if people refuse to be this shitty. As a human being, be a better human being. And I think that we will all go a long way, including the companies, because they have to follow in line, because if they don't, they'll die.
Yep. Cannot agree more.
Just got to find a way to make the shitty human beings not be shitty.
That's impossible, but we can try to be less shitty.
There is a way, but it usually involves murder, so we just remove them.
I think Brent's...
we as a human species already tried genocide, so that didn't work.
Or the right mindset. Let me have another swig of beer before we move on here.
Barely touched that thing. What are you, nursing it? Jeez.
That's beer number 2, sir.
Oh, I'm about to say, this is like technically 7 shots of tequila. You better hurry up. I'm not going to be sober much longer.
All right, time to move on to our final topic of the show, please.